I thought leaving my dream garden in Michigan was going to be the hardest part of this move. Boy, was I wrong. Not only am I starting over and trying to figure out this Kentucky clay, but I'm doing it on borrowed time with a tight budget, knowing that I'm leaving this all behind come 2 to 3 years from now when we build our forever home. So how on earth do you create a garden retreat when everything is temporary? Well, it turns out that constraints can be the best teacher that we never wanted. Hi, I'm Sue from Garden Moxie. Welcome to my channel. At the beginning of June, my husband and I moved from an established garden in Michigan, and we're starting a new life here in Kentucky. When we first arrived to Kentucky at the beginning of June, we had our work cut out for us. This wasn't just about starting over. It was about starting smart. I was starting a new garden in June. It was already hot, and I had no idea how the growing conditions were here. Every plant that I buy for this garden needs to earn its place. It needs to be tough, inexpensive, and hopefully portable. I'm finding that the biggest challenge that I have is that this space is temporary. And not only that, 2 to 3 years is not a long time to create a garden. I've had a lot of people ask why I would even bother if this is just a temporary space. Well, I can tell you to never underestimate the power of a tiny garden. It's a perfect place to be able to escape the stress of the daily grind and to be able to just surround yourself in the beauty of God's creation. So I decided that I was going to start small, first focusing on the patio and then moving out into the backyard from there. I am so glad that we were able to bring some containered trees with us when we moved from Michigan to Kentucky. Those were the first things that we put in place on the patio, and they made such a huge difference. We were also fortunate because we were able to bring our garden fountain, and I've placed that temporarily on the deck. And yes, I understand that placing a fountain on a wooden deck is not ideal. But again, this is a temporary space, and for us, what's important is to have a peaceful, quiet area where we can relax. So let's take a look at how I started and how things are looking here in our new Kentucky garden. I decided that I was going to divide the backyard into 3 terrace sections, and the first garden area that I've worked on is the first terrace. To create the division and to add some structure, I purchased some Oakland holly trees from Home Depot. I also purchased 7 Invincible mini mauvette hydrangeas. This hydrangea variety is a hydrangea arborescens, which is actually native in this area. Because of this, I've specifically not amended the soil around the deck area to see how these hydrangeas hold up. And I'm happy to report that these plants are doing wonderfully, even now here at the end of August. And after I planted the holly trees, I just used my spade and cleared out a small bed. My idea here is that I want to focus on pollinator-friendly plants. One of the things that made me really happy in this area was that there actually appears to be quite a bit of sand in the soil here, as opposed to the sides of the yard, which are that super hard compacted clay. So I think that this area here is going to be the perfect place for a pollinator garden because it so far seems to be a very free-draining soil. In some of my previous videos, I talked about wanting to have a pathway attaching the side yards of the garden. But I'm struggling a little bit with the cost of the patio blocks. So I decided that I'm going to try to create a path using limestone from our property. It's going to take a while to move because I'm only carrying a few stones at a time in my car. But I think that this is going to be a much more budget-friendly approach. I'm also trying to be smart about how I do the other terraced sections. Instead of rushing out to buy expensive hedge plants now, I'm waiting until the fall clearance sales at the local garden centers. I have to tell you that I've been really impressed with the overall quality of the plants and the variety of plants at the local garden center. Every garden center I've visited so far has a great selection of mature plants at fairly reasonable prices. I need to be able to select the next hedge carefully, so I'm taking my time to do this next part. One of the things that's really surprised me about this backyard space is the fact that I really don't see that many birds. I did show where I had uncovered this beautiful Celtic design bird bath, and I've been diligently keeping the water clean every day here in the bird bath, and I placed it close to this beautiful Japanese maple. I haven't seen any birds really taking a bath in the bird bath, so I'm a little bit disappointed in that. So this is what everything is looking like now that we're at the end of August. It's been a fairly dry August, and this area in the back garden gets a ton of sun. And I have to say that deciding to put in a small pollinator garden has been the right decision. Already, even with the small number of plants that I've put into the garden, we have tons of pollinators visiting the garden. A lot of butterflies, different types of wasps, and a couple different types of bees. I'm glad to be focusing on pollinator-friendly plants as well as Kentucky natives. I've purposely not amended this soil because I wanted to see how the plants would perform. And I have to say that I think that these heat-tolerant, pollinator-friendly, specifically native types of plants are going to do just fantastic here, and I don't anticipate needing to spend a lot of money on soil amendments. And I have to say that the Klaus Delby container gardening book has really given me a whole new perspective. Now I feel excited to start thinking about container displays for the next season, starting with spring blooming bulbs. I'm going to be able to move those bulbs to our property once they finish blooming here in our temporary home. So now I feel like it's not a wasted effort. Honestly, this new perspective has kind of been a game changer because I was struggling with finding a balance between creating a beautiful garden but also not wasting money. So the plant stand that my husband and I built is going to help me to develop new color schemes and new plant combinations. But best of all, we're going to be able to move all of those things with us to our forever home. Leaving my dream garden wasn't easy, but I'm glad I did. I've realized something important. I didn't leave behind a garden. I made space for something new. A new life with my husband and a fresh start. And through it all, I've come to understand the power of design constraints, how creativity thrives when space is limited, and how even the tiniest garden can offer us peace. You don't need perfection, you just need your place. A small, intentional space where you can pause, breathe, and escape the noise of the world. And that's more than enough. Well, that's it for this video, friends. And I'll see you in the next one.